Hi everyone. Today we're going to do the range sum query challenge, and we're going to do this in Python. So this is my second time doing a Python video. Uh, Hopefully it'll go well. If you like it, please like and subscribe, and hopefully there'll be more. So let's get started on this question. I took a quick look at this question earlier, and it is confusing. I don't know why they do questions like this. It's not very straightforward. It actually doesn't test much in terms of programming, but it's part of the leak coding challenge, so here we are. So range sum query, it says that we're given an integer array nums, and we want to handle multiple queries of the following type. Calculate the sum of the element of nums between indices left and right inclusive, and we have the constraint that left is less than right, which is good because otherwise we'd probably have to check for that. And then they want us to implement the numArray class, where the initialization function and the sumRange function are the two functions that we want to do. The initialization, not sure what it does, but the example will probably give a hint. The sumRange returns the sum of the elements of nums between indices left and right inclusive. So again, it highlights inclusive, so it's not trying to trick you here. It just makes sure that we get from left to right, and we get the number at the left and number at the right. So the example here is given an input of numArray, sumRange, 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 and this number array, they want us to output this, which is totally confusing, 100% confusing. This is a bad question. But let's look at the explanation. So it says that numArray equals new numArray, given an array. And then sumRange 0, 2 is, they want us to return 1, -1 and -3, and this is how they get to it. So with the explanation in the example, it kind of makes a little bit more sense. It looks like that we're actually not given this as an array. It just looks like an array. It's not an array. Apparently these are the commands that would be given to our class. So at first they're going to, what this says is we're going to initialize, and then we're going to call sumRange 3 times. They're not actually passing this as an array. They're also not passing this as an array. This is the arguments that are going to go with the commands here. So when we look at the example explanation here, it looks like this first input, this is what's getting passed to numArray. And then the 0, 2 is what's getting passed to the first sumRange command argument, and then 2, 5, and 0, 5. So as you can see, like, this question is not a good question, but we'll go through it anyways. It's not a hard question. The actual programming concepts I teach here, it looks to be essentially dealing with lists, dealing with classes and functions, and dealing with a control structure like a loop. That's all the knowledge that you need to solve this question. So it's a leak code easy, as expected. It doesn't require a lot of programming knowledge. Just that this question is worded really badly in terms of figuring out from the instructions to what they actually want you to do. So now actually let's look in the code and let's get cracking. So here we have a class numArray. We have an init function given nums, which is a list, and then we have a sumRange function given a left integer and a right integer, and returns an integer. So what does the init actually do? That's a good question. So it looks like just from this whole, I guess, instance here, we're passed that in as argument the original full array of numbers. So we probably want to store that somewhere. So we just do self dot, let's just use the same variable name, nums equals nums. And that'll store this nums input in as a member of the numArray object that's initialized. So now we actually want to calculate the sumRange and return an integer. So what we're going to do here is we want to calculate from nums, the sum of all the numbers from left to right inclusive. So we can just do a for loop for, let's use x in range of left, right. And that'll sum from left to right, not inclusive on the right side. So we can actually do a +1 or -1. It is a +1. So that way, because it's not inclusive, the +1 will make it inclusive. And then what we want to do is we want to just add the sum together as we pass through each element of the loop. So sum equals to sum plus x. And then we want to create sum equals 0 outside of the loop. The reason for that is scoping, because if we only have it inside, the scoping might not be very clear. But because we have the scoping for sum initialized outside of here, when the loop ends, we still have sum available. And it's the same sum that's getting iterated as we pass through the loop. And then here, just return sum. And then let's run code. My answer is 3, 14, 15. Okay, that is not the right answer. How do we get 14 instead of -1? That is a good question. Let's see what we're doing as we pass through. So we'll just do a print statement here, adding x to sum. So this way, as we loop through, we'll see exactly what we're adding to it. And hopefully we'll find out exactly why we're not getting the right answer. So here it looks like, actually every time we initialize, we just do like new initialization as well, just to give a separator. So we do one initialization. That's how we got to 14. Actually, let's just move that initialization somewhere else. It looks like it's getting called only once. So we'll just do this here. So we're adding 0 to 0. So given this is from 0 to 2, but this is -2. So why are we adding 0 to it? Because the x here, okay, this is a really silly mistake. Too bad this is a YouTube live, otherwise I would probably delete this from the video. But the x here is actually the index of the array. So what you just want to do here is self.nums at x. So x is actually the index of the array, it's not the actual value. Yeah, I was too used to grabbing the actual value out of like for each statements and stuff like that. Like for in JavaScript for let x of iterable, and I'll get the actual element instead of the index. But this is actually the index, so let's change it to I just to make it really clear that it's an index, and then we'll just run this again. My bad, that was embarrassing. Please don't let that scare you away from the channel, but yeah, this goes to show that we're actually doing it live. So we get the 1 -1 3, it is correct, we'll submit. Yeah, so just be, it's pretty for easy questions, just be careful that you're keeping track of what variables you're using and what they actually represent. It's really easy to get caught up in the more advanced programming and then forget all about the basics or paying attention to details. And when you have actual operating environment where you can actually run the code and see the result, This will let you know, I guess, where you might have made a mistake, and therefore you can fix it. However, if you're doing an interview where, for example, it's like a Google Doc, so you can actually run the code, then you just have to kind of run the code in your mind and make sure that you're actually using the variables correctly and keeping track of everything correctly. And yeah, it's accepted. So yeah, that's it for this video. Hope you liked it. Hit that subscribe, and you'll see more of these videos in both JavaScript and Python. I used to do a lot of these in JavaScript, so I'm actually pretty new to the Python world, but the best way to learn is to learn together, and that means that I'll be learning as I go through these videos